Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday service. I'm Roger Jones, one of the ministers at UUSS. Good to have you with us. With me today are Reverend Lucy, who's preaching, Francis Myers, our worship associate, Irina Chanseva, our pianist, and Dirk Toole, our technical wizard, plus some more special participants you will see shortly. Our mission says we come together to deepen our lives and be a force for healing in the world. There are a number of ways we do that, and we invite you to get to know us. I want to mention a few things. Tomorrow night, our mindfulness meditation session is at 6 o'clock with Anne. Tuesday night, we have Vespers at 7, and this week's Vespers is in honor of Ramadan, the month-long practice of daytime fasting in the Islamic calendar. That will be at 7 in this space. Wednesday night, we have Wellspring Wednesday, and it's the week for life stories of our elders. I will be interviewing our member, Elizabeth Pataki. We hope you receive our weekly message on Fridays so you can keep track of what's coming up, but you can find it and you could subscribe to it at our website. And also the weekly message or the weekly calendar on the website tells you what's coming up. Our website is uuss.org. If you're fairly new or if you're brand new, we're glad you're here. We invite you to fill out a newcomers card online. It's at our website, uuss.org/newcomers. And we can then send you our weekly message, among other things about what's going on here. We also hope you will stay after the service for Coffee Hub so we can have a chance to get to know one another. Our greeter this morning is our member, Mary Howard. And if you type "I'm new" in the chat, Mary will respond to you with a private message to give you a special welcome to this congregation. Though our doors are closed for now, our hearts are open, and this is a very active congregation. Speaking of open hearts, I would like to introduce Jim Eastman, who is a very open-hearted member of our congregation. Jim is serving as the chairperson of our stewardship campaign or pledge drive. This is when members and friends and other supporters make financial pledges to support the mission of UUSS for the coming year. Jim would like to say a few words to all of us. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Roger. Thank you very much. I appreciate being with you all this morning. We've been speaking a lot about how different our pledge gathering procedures are this year due to the pandemic distancing restrictions. Our primary communications to you are now by email. Our testimonials are web videos, and our new pledge form is online. These new ways have been a great success, though there will naturally be some adjustments as we continue to learn from this big jump. Many of these procedures will serve as models for years to come. Thank you to all thank you to all of you who've made your pledge to UUSS for the coming fiscal year. If you have not already done so, please make your intentions known to us before tomorrow to help us wrap up this year's stewardship campaign and start moving forward. Making a pledge now will help our board make an informed recommendation for next year's budget and can save a volunteer from having to make a follow-up call this week to those who we've not heard from. Perhaps you've heard you can now make your pledge and submit it online, privately, and securely at uuss.org/pledge. If you prefer, you can instead email our bookkeeper, Michelle, or call her tomorrow in the office. You can use these same options if you'd like to modify your pledge by simply resubmitting it. I can't tell you how thankful we are for your generosity, your patience, and your faith in us as we move forward to better days together.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for all the service you've been doing, and to everybody who will be responding to your encouragement. Next, we have a hymn. Irina, good morning.
Good morning, Roger. Good morning, everyone. Great to be with you this morning. Let's join together in singing one of our favorite hymns. It is an African American spiritual, Come and Go With Me. So after a brief introduction, come and join me in singing. Here we go. Second verse. The third one. And the last one. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you this morning. And good morning, Francis.
Good morning, Lucy. Now is the time to please get your chalice or candle ready to light after Lucy and I share these words from the Reverend Deanna Vandiver.
We light this chalice, symbol of our faith alive in this world.
Naming our vision of collective liberation and daring to remember each other into beloved community.
So now we're going to, there's Margaret. Hey, Margaret, good morning. Margaret's going to share with us about our upcoming vote on the 8th principle. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you. I am co-chair along with Susan Davis of our UUSS Program Council, and I'm very happy to talk with you this morning about Program Council's support for our congregation's adoption of the proposed 8th principle. We believe that a commitment to the principle through the involvement of all of our program groups, in addition to all other UUSS activities, is essential for living out our mission and for fulfilling our strategic plan. During our 2018 retreats and forums for development of our strategic plan, do you remember what overwhelming support there was for an emphasis on social justice, racial justice, equity, and compassion? Goal 3 of the plan calls this out. It says, live out our commitment to justice, equity, and compassion. We are reaching out to our many programs and activities, encouraging them, with our Program Council support, to imagine ways they might live out this commitment by integrating this commitment into their activities. We believe that the proposed 8th principle speaks directly to that goal. As a result, at our February meeting, Program Council members unanimously approved a resolution in support of the 8th principle. Our resolution says, we, the members of the Program Council of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Sacramento, support adoption of the proposed Unitarian Universalist Association 8th principle. It is an explicit commitment to, quote, accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions, unquote, in ourselves and in our congregation. We encourage the congregation to approve UUSS's adoption of the 8th principle at our upcoming May congregational meeting. I look forward to that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. This is the time in our service when we invite you to use the chat function to share your joys, sorrows, reasons for gratitude, your prayers or requests for prayer. You can click on the chat icon and then enter. Make sure it's going to everyone so that it will appear on the scroll. If you'd like to read what everybody posts, you click on the chat icon and a scroll will open up. And we will take about 2 minutes to do this, and we will hear music from Irina as we share our joys and sorrows. Thank you to all who shared, and thank you to everyone for bearing witness to the joys and sorrows and prayers that were expressed this morning. Now I ask you, after you hit the enter key one last time, to refrain from posting as we enter a time of centering in word and silence. We will start our centering time with an invitation to breathe together. And as we do, remember that the same spirit of peace and love breathing through you is connecting you to everyone else. It links you to life all around us, all around this planet Earth. So as we breathe in, let us breathe in the spirit of peace. And as we breathe out, let us breathe out the spirit of love into this world. Let us breathe in and breathe out. Let us take another deep inhale breath of peace, hold it for a brief moment, and then let out a breath of love into the world. As we continue breathing together mindfully, I will offer these words of prayer and intention. On this day and in the days to come, for those among us who need mercy and healing and hope, we pray for these blessings to descend on them and on all of us who seek them. For the times when we feel weak, worried, or without a purpose, may we remember the warmth of community, the reviving power of togetherness, and the courage found in solidarity. For all of us who are grieving losses, who are bearing witness to hardship and pain, and who are longing for liberation, freedom, and peace, may we join our hearts in the solidarity of love. For all the milestones being marked in these days, for the reunions, for the occasions of success and achievement, for moments of good luck, may we join in celebration. For all who seek reminders of the gift of life and the beauty of this world, let us tune our senses toward every blessing. May our hearts dwell in the holy places of joy and grace. Whoever we may be, wherever we may be, let us find reasons for gratitude. Let us begin by giving thanks for the gift of this new day and for every good gift. Blessed be, and amen. Now let us pause in silence for a few moments. Blessed be, and peace. Next, we will have one of our UU hymns called Meditation on Breathing. It will be sung for us, with us, by singers from First Unitarian of Denver. And we invite you to sing along. The words are, when I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe
I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out loud.
I have a poem I want to share with you this morning. It's called How to Paint a Portrait of a Bird. It's by Jacques Prévert. Paint the cage first with the door open. Next, paint something pretty, something simple, something lovely, something of use to the bird. Then put the canvas near a tree, in a garden, in the woods, or in a forest. Hide behind the tree. Say nothing. Don't move. Sometimes the bird comes quickly, but it can just as well take many years before deciding. Don't be disheartened. Wait. Wait years if need be. The pace of the bird's arrival bears no relation to the success of the painting. When the bird comes, if it comes, keep very still. Wait for the bird to enter the cage, and once it has, gently shut the door with the brush. Then paint out the bars one by one, taking care not to touch any of the bird's feathers. Next, paint the tree's portrait, choosing the loveliest of its branches for the bird. Paint likewise the green leaves and fresh breeze and sun's scintillation and the clamor of crickets in the heat of summer. And then wait until the bird decides to sing. If the bird does not sing, that's a bad sign, a sign the painting is no good. But if it sings, that's a good sign, a sign you can sign.
After I read the poem, How to Paint a Portrait of a Bird, that Reverend Lucy just recited, I visualized a cage. And this cage was the one I had created for myself, imagining each bar is one of my beliefs. These beliefs, my definition of right and wrong, the shoulds and should nots, came from my family, my culture, my education, and society. I was taught the roles that I was expected to play and how the world should work as a white, middle-class, cis woman born in 1962. These beliefs worked until they didn't. Like the belief, if I only worked hard enough and followed all the rules, everything would work out just fine. Or the belief that I could do it all on my own. I shouldn't need anyone for support when things got hard. Or the belief that I couldn't be racist if I adopted Black daughters who I loved with all my heart. A friend of mine who runs a program called the Spiritual Workout says, beliefs are neither right nor wrong, good nor bad. Simply, they serve us or they don't. As I expanded my relationships with people whose backgrounds and beliefs were different from mine, I found many of the bars of my cage becoming loose and even falling out. And this is where it gets a bit tricky. Because although my beliefs create a cage that keeps me locked in, those same bars also keep things out, protecting me from feeling uncomfortable when I realize that some of my beliefs are narrow-minded or may have caused harm to others. It is then I get to make a choice. Cling to all my beliefs, locking myself in my cage and keeping others out, or opening my mind and the door of my cage to constantly ask the questions, is this belief still serving me? Does this belief make me the person that my family, friends, and community need me to be? Am I brave enough to be that vulnerable? Although it is hard work to look critically at my beliefs, it is the most important work I do. Because if I don't, how can I understand and empathize with others who struggle in their own cages as they evaluate how or even if their beliefs are still serving them? I believe real change, creating a society where individuals are able to create meaningful lives as they define them, is only possible when we can build relationships with each other. I don't have to agree with someone else's belief. I can disagree and still be kind, or at least try to be kind, because one of my core beliefs is that love is always the answer, and I could always choose love.
Thank you, Irina. This congregation has a tradition of giving away half of our offering donations every month. We give them away to a community partner organization, one for each month, 12 throughout the year. And in April, we're sharing our offering donations with the International Rescue Committee of Northern California, especially the local Sacramento office. International Rescue Committee was founded during the Second World War to help refugees from persecution and war. And it has continued its work of promoting freedom and respect and other human rights, as well as meeting basic needs and helping people get to safety. This humanitarian organization has a strong and active local presence because we have many refugees, immigrants, and asylum seekers in our local community. So our donations in April will support IRC's work locally, helping refugee families, immigrants, and survivors of trafficking as they seek to make a new start, build a new life, and to be part of our community here in this area. We're very proud to be partners with IRC and to have them share in our offering donations. On the slide, you can see ways you can contribute. You can do it by text. You can go to our website and contribute electronically online or by credit card, by contacting the office, or you could just mail a check to UUSS here on Sierra Boulevard. We thank you for your support of our community partners by supporting our shared offering. The next slide will show you our words in response to the offering. I invite you to join with me in saying them in unison. May the spirit of gratitude bless and multiply all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive.
I want to share with you this morning the words of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. She was a freeborn Black woman born in 1825, and she belonged to both the Unitarian and African Methodist Episcopal churches in Philadelphia. She lived her life using her relative privilege to fight for the freedom of her people, all of her people. She was the widowed mother of 4 children and supported herself through writing and oratory. She organized for women's suffrage alongside the ending of slavery and civil rights for all. In her day, she was as well known an orator as Frederick Douglass. So these are words that she gave at a speech to the National Women's Rights Convention in New York City in May 1866. Some of her words are the standard words that were present in speech in that time. She said, "We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse on its own soul." You tried that in the case of the Negro. You pressed him down for 2 centuries, and in doing so, you crippled the moral strength and paralyzed the spiritual energies of the white people of this country. When the hands of the Black were fettered, white men were deprived of the liberty of speech and the freedom of the press. Society cannot afford to neglect the enlightenment of any class of its members. In the South, the legislation of the country was in behalf of the rich slaveholders, while the poor white man was neglected. What is the consequence today? I do not believe that giving women the ballot is immediately going to cure all the ills of life. I do not believe that white women are dewdrops just exhaled from the skies. I think that, like men, they may be divided into three classes: the good, the bad, and the indifferent. The good would vote according to their convictions and principles. The bad, as dictated by prejudice or malice. And the indifferent will vote on the strongest side of the question, with the winning party.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers, sons is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers, sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny. To me, young people come first. They come first. They have the courage where we fail. If I can just shine a light on as they carry us through the gale. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I'll bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Come on, sing. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We cannot rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We cannot rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We cannot rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We cannot rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We will not rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We will not rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We will not rest. We who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. We will not rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot.
Within Unitarian Universalism, there's an emerging focus on a theology of liberation. This was part of the charge that was given in the report of the Commission on Institutional Change. The commission was created in 2017 to conduct an audit of power structures and an analysis of systemic racism in the Unitarian Universalist Association. They recommended that as UUs, we articulate a theology that helps point the way towards liberation. But before I get into the details of UU theology, I first want to talk about that poem about the bird. When I decided to preach on the topic of liberation, the first thing that came to my mind was that poem, How to Paint the Portrait of a Bird. I first heard it at the Green Gulch Zen Center in 1993, and I've carried it with me ever since. It has given me a powerful metaphor for understanding the process of liberation. I think the best way to approach the poem is how you would approach interpreting a dream. And you start by assuming that every character in the poem is you. You are the artist and you are the bird. Perhaps the artist is the part of you that is striving, doing, accomplishing, and the bird is your spirit or your soul. The poet tells us that to paint a portrait of a bird, we must first paint a cage. Lure the bird into the cage, paint the door closed, and then systematically paint away all the bars of the cage, replacing them with the loveliest branches, fresh breezes, and the sun. When the bird sings, our portrait is complete. So it's odd. If you want to paint a portrait of a bird and have it sing, why do you need a cage in the first place? The cage doesn't even show up in the final portrait. The deeper meaning of this poem, of course, is that before we can be truly free and able to live fully, sing like a bird, we have to recognize the beliefs that have restricted us. Frances talked about this in her reflection. Before we can be truly free, we have to see how we are in bondage in the cage. The bars of our cage can be made of the ideas and beliefs of our childhood or the stories we have told ourselves in order to make sense of this world. The stories we have told ourselves in order to survive. Getting into the cage, honestly seeing what has held us back, is necessary in the process of liberation. And as the poet says, it can take years to get into the cage. Some people may never do it, preferring to live with avoidance and denial. That moment we enter the cage, that moment we accept the bonds that hold us back, is truly a moment of grace. It reminds me of someone entering a 12-step program. In that process, entering into the cage is a moment of admission or acceptance. I am an addict. Acknowledgement. It's the moment that you accept that the way that you've been living your life is restricting, is limiting. And I'm not just talking about addiction here. Each one of us has stories we tell ourselves that keep us from flying free. Of course, when the cage closes, the work begins. Facing what you've denied, and then painting out the bars of the cage, acknowledging how our stories, our denial has held us back, and then releasing each of these things one by one. It means being present with all those things that you have avoided. It takes humility, courage, and self-love. With each new awareness, each bar of the cage is loosened. And as Frances said to herself, am I brave enough to be this vulnerable? For when we stop telling ourselves that we have everything figured out, we enter into openness and uncertainty. This is the work of liberation. Now, as I have interpreted this poem, it's about an individual process. But in truth, we are all in a cage. each one of us, and all together. A cage of our communal making, a cage of our culture and of our history. We are living with stories of who matters, what is important, and who gets to hold the power. These stories have been passed down to us through generations, and they're keeping us stuck and keeping many of us truly oppressed. So now we come back to the report of the Commission on Institutional Change. Recognizing the power of liberation and the need for it in our world today, the report encourages us to re-engage with our theological legacy and reinterpret it in a way that is liberatory. They suggest that we further develop our theology of liberation to prepare us for this work of equity, accountability, and mutuality, to prepare us for building the beloved community. I find this all really inspiring and intriguing. What do we mean by a theology of liberation? For our Universalist ancestors, their primary theology was of liberation, the idea of universal salvation, liberating people from the fear of hell. This theology that God was loving and forgiving and that all souls were saved was the liberating theology of the 19th century, at a time when hellfire and damnation was what most people heard at church. The Universalist theology expanded into the 20th century with a broader theology of love among humans, that we should not just look to God to be a loving force, but that each one of us must love each other enough to create heaven here on earth. And then the vision of the Universalists expanded to a dream of one world, united in a common purpose. You see this in our sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. So Universalism moved from this idea of universal salvation to collective liberation. But it is incomplete. It is not alive for us today. I think it's fair to say that this theology has stalled. So how do we reinvigorate this message to be relevant for our times? One of the people who is helping UUs to reinvigorate this theology is Sophia Betancourt, a professor at Starr King School for the Ministry and a former interim president of the UUA. She gave the sermon at the service of the Living Tradition at General Assembly in 2018 with the title, Liberation is Collective. Her sermon says that as she struggles, the struggles of our country and our world, as she deals with them, she is grounded and sustained by the wisdom of activists who have long taught us that our liberation is collective. Long taught us, but perhaps we weren't quite ready to hear it. She discusses the wisdom of two women that I want to share with you this morning. The first is the Indigenous activist, Lily Watson. I'm sure that some of you have heard her words. She says, "If you are here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together." I love that quote. If you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine. But I'm just starting to understand it fully, just starting to take it into my body. What does it mean that our liberation is bound up with each other? Well, I think the pandemic time has helped us to see what it means. In our time of sheltering in place, the metaphor of the cage has become depressingly real. While we wait for the pandemic to abate, we have seen the ravages of systemic racism and classism. We have seen it all, from the suffocating of George Floyd to the higher death rates from COVID among the working poor and people of color, to the violence against Asian Americans. We had an inkling before, but there were lots of things to distract us. Now there are fewer distractions, and we can't as easily escape this reality. The bars of the cage that enclose us all are becoming very real. So let's turn to another wise woman mentioned by Professor Betancourt, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. As you heard in the reading, she had some wise words to share on the subject of collective bondage. She said, "We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul." Without receiving the curse in its own soul. Do you feel that now? Can you look away and not be affected by the oppression that we see everywhere? In the events of the past year, our eyes have been opened, and we can no longer believe or deny or think that poverty and racism is someone else's problem to solve. We can no longer think that we are not directly affected by the suffering of others. We are fully in that cage now and can't be in denial anymore. It's not a matter of helping. It's not a matter of service. It's that we are bound together in one great bundle of humanity, and our liberation is collective. Because we are connected and interdependent, we cannot be free until everyone is free. This is the gift of this pandemic time, this first step towards collective liberation, the step of seeing the cage of oppression that encloses us all. I can no longer pretend that I am not affected by the racial trauma around me. George Floyd's death disavowed me of that idea. I can no longer walk by the person on the street who has no home and not feel the stain on my soul, not understand that their liberation is bound up in mine. Our eyes have been opened to seeing that we're not free, that the ways that this whole bundle of humanity is trapped in the same oppressive system. For those of us who are white, we must realize how complacent we have been and how we have sponsored and sustained these systems of oppression. We must realize that we have been reinforcing the bars on the cage that keep other oppressed. UUs are very active in social justice and work to build the world that we dream about. Our hearts are truly in the right place. But our theology of liberation will never have wings unless we acknowledge our complicity and our complacency has been sustaining oppressive systems. We've gotten stuck in denial or white guilt or fear or all of the above. I hope we're getting past that now. I hope we're ready to step in and feel what this cage is all about, to see the bars that are restraining us. Those of you who've been attending the UUSS racial justice gatherings know what I mean. Those of you who are serving Mercy Peddlers know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there are others among us, and the work that you have been doing to open your eyes know what I'm talking about. So as we begin this work of collective liberation, we're going to need some wisdom. Wisdom to see beyond the white dominant structures that have been created and sustained. There are so many voices of people of color arising that can help us with this process. New voices from the margins and voices that have been unappreciated for years by the dominant culture. We can approach these ideas with gratitude and humility. We can practice being uncomfortable. we can build resilience for the journey. Now, I can imagine that some of you might be quite surprised that a sermon on liberation leaves you in a cage with the door painted shut. But you know, that's where we are at the beginning of this journey of collective liberation. And it's a great beginning, a first giant step. The oppressive systems we live with were not created in a day and will not be dismantled quickly, not in our lifetimes. But we are on our way. I believe this is an exciting time to be alive. There is so much possibility for change, so much honesty, so much end of denial. Let's not waste it out of fear or complacency. Each of us must do our part with courage and humility to paint away the bars that hold us in collective bondage, and let us all sing the joy of liberation. I hope you will join me. And let us start on that journey of singing by singing together with open hearts when our heart is in a holy place. We will sing along with with musicians from the UU Society of San Francisco.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power on each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Imagine, if you will, that we're back in our beloved sanctuary. And this is the moment when we all reach our hands out to the person next to us or across the aisle. Hold that image in your mind. And now imagine that we're reaching out beyond the walls of our sanctuary, reaching out to all of us in this world, all of us together, all of us connected. The power of collective liberation is that we're in it together. We take everyone with us. Everyone together is on this journey. And I know for certain that there is enough love to go around for everyone and enough love to help us all break these bounds that hold us in oppression, and help us walk together into the possibility of freedom. Blessed be. Thank you for listening to me. Amen. And now let us extinguish our chalice, led by Francis Myers.
We extinguish these flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our heart until we are together again.
Thank you. Don't go away. There's more to come. Our coffee hub, we will have 2 10-minute sessions by the magic of Zoom in small groups, in small breakout rooms. And we will do that after a 3-minute break. So you can take a break, grab a cup of coffee, or just listen to the wonderful music from Arena. Our question for Coffee Hub reflection and response suggested to you today is, what's holding you back? What's holding you back? So we'll see you in 3 minutes.